Alright, what's up VanCanners? How you doing? As you guys probably know, if you watch the channel, I've been riding this bike down here for a little while now. Over a year. I think I got it in... when was it delivered? I think I ordered it around July 1st and I picked it up, or it got delivered to my house around August 8th. So I've had it for a year and 2 months now. And what I want to talk about is what YT bikes are like after a whole year of riding. And here in Vancouver, we pretty much can ride all year. I ride in the rain and I ride pretty often. I mean, mostly on the weekends and after work, but still pretty often. And I feel like I've gotten to know the YT brand pretty well because I have this bike. Ooh, let's look. That's my 2018 YT2S CF Pro. I picked it up around a little bit before May. I got it right before the bike park opened, and I've been riding that all summer. That's been really good, actually. Maybe I'll do a review on that one. And I also have this bike. Whoop. This is my 2017 YT2S CF, not Pro. But the bike that I do want to talk about is this one. This is my 2018 Capra CF. Like I said, I've had it for a year. I ride it pretty often, a few times a week. I even ride it during the winter, even though the winter here is rain and a tiny bit of snow, but still, I ride it all winter. I ride it all year, that's the point. So, after a year, what do I think? Well, let's go talk about it. Alright, here it is. My 2018 Capra CF. And so it's pretty much stock. The only things that have changed are, right now I'm running the Maxxis Assegais in a DH casing, mostly because my E13 tires just wore out from being ridden. I've got the 1UP Components pedals on, but the bike doesn't come with pedals, so that doesn't really count as a change. But it's unique to my bike, mostly. I swapped out the 150mm E13 dropper for a 170mm P&W Bachelor dropper post. And I'm running Cushcore, and that's really it. Everything else is stock, because the spec of the bike was pretty good, especially at the price. So let's start at the front of the bike. After a year, like I said, I wore out the E13 tires, so I've got these Maxxis Assegais on. The fork, the RockShox Lyric, has been running really well. I've only serviced it once, and I've swapped the seals and the foam ring and done a lower service. But other than that, even when I was doing the service, after a year of riding in the rain and riding a few times a week, the oil actually wasn't that dirty, and I probably could have gone a little longer without servicing it. So, pretty happy with my RockShox Lyric fork. No complaints really. Also up front, we have the E13 TRS wheel set. Again, I see a lot of people complaining about these online, but I've had really zero problems with them. And actually, I think they've been pretty good. I checked out the bearings, they're still super smooth in the front. I like the way that the big hubs look. Although I wish the sticker was, painted on or something like that, but that's okay. The rim's still true, I haven't had to tighten up the spokes or anything. And I feel like I've been reasonably hard on them and they get a pass from me. So I'd buy an E13 wheel set again. Also up front here we have the SRAM codes. And again, no complaints really. I feel like I'm pretty harsh with them. Haven't needed to bleed them. And the brake pads last a pretty reasonable amount of time. The same as probably any other brake pad. I've used Shimano's, I've used the SLX, I've used the codes, I've used the TRPs, I've used the guides. And I really like all the brakes. I don't think there are bad brakes. I think they're all so good now that we can be picky about it, but I would really go with any of them. I find the codes are a little more grabby than the guides, and I would get the codes over the guides. But other than that, after a whole year of use, I mean, they really just need a bleed, and then they're good as new. Can't really complain about that. So up front here, we got a few more things. The race face turbine bars, the race face turbine stem, the E13 dropper lever, the code brake levers, some Sensus grips, and an FSA headset. So that's the one of the complaints about this bike I had. The headset bearings did seem to wear out pretty fast. I've swapped them out for an FSA headset, and no complaints here now. The bearings that came with, while they lasted, were smooth. They just didn't last that long, and when it comes to bearings, I just need them to work. And the same thing kind of goes for bars and stem. I really just need them to work. Actually, how they look is probably more important. Well, not more important. they shouldn't break and they should look good, and that's about it. From there, you just choose them based on your personal preference. Do you want a lot of rise? Maybe you don't. Up to you. And that was another thing I forgot. This did come with ODI grips. I switched them out for the Sensus grips. Really just personal preference. No complaints about the ODI grips. I really like them, but decided to try out these Sensus grips. Also really like these as well. It's kind of hard to review a grip. It just, does it feel nice? And these do, so good to go. Now, even though I do have the P&W dropper, I kept my E13 dropper post lever because it's actually pretty good. It's got this little sort of skateboard deck grip on it, so your thumb doesn't slip off. It's got a little bearing in it, so it's nice and smooth, and it works really well, so I didn't feel the need to switch it out. And the last thing on here is I have a Shimano XT shifter. Again, I just need to shift. It does the job, no complaints. It's been a year, hasn't broken. It looks all right too. Moving to the middle of the bike, we have this SDG seat that comes with the YT. Again, no complaints, reasonably comfortable. It's lasted a whole year, riding in the wet, riding in the dry, riding in Whistler, riding on the North Shore. So, gets me to the top, and we move that out of the way. We have the P&W Bachelor dropper. I pretty much have had this on since I got the bike, since I don't really like mechanical dropper posts. They're just too loud and clunky. And I know this doesn't come with the YT Capra, but since I've had it for a whole year, I can talk about it. So the good things are, I think they're priced really well. They're really easy to service. They're easy to install, and they came in lots of good travel sizes. And after a year, the only two complaints that I have are there's a bit of play, a bit of side-to-side motion now, which I couldn't really get rid of from doing a service. I think I'd have to replace some other parts in there. And every now and then it gets sticky in this last little part of the travel. Apparently I need to put more air in it, and I might be having some trouble with my shock pump. Maybe it's not telling me how much pressure is in here, but I haven't quite sorted that out even after servicing it. But that's the only problem from riding a whole year in the rain. Well, most of the year in the rain, at least half the year in the rain. That's pretty good. And then when I did service it not too long ago, it actually, again, was pretty clean in there. I think that the seals do a good job of keeping the dirt and water out, so I'm hoping this dropper lasts quite a while longer. Sticking at the middle of the bike, we have my Super Deluxe rear shock. And again, after a year, it's actually just holding up just fine. I would expect it to last probably a couple more years. I recently had a service, and I asked the shop guys, what it looked like in there. Was it all dirty from riding in the rain and the muck and stuff like that? And they said, no, it's actually pretty clean there. Didn't really need to replace too much. Seals were still good. Checked it out and it was good to go. So RockShox Super Deluxe and RockShox Lyric, not only no complaints, but I actually think I might like these better than Fox suspension. Bring on the hate comments, but I really like them, and they seem durable, they feel good, they're easy to service, and I know they work for me. So I think I might get them on my next bike. One of the things that I think I'm most impressed with is the fact that the frame bearings are still good to go. A whole year of riding, a few times a week, in the rain, in the muck, in the dust, and they're still fine. I don't need to replace them, and I think they're gonna last quite a bit longer. I hate replacing frame bearings. It's an annoying job, so I really like that they lasted this long, and that I think they're gonna last even longer. Over a year of riding in the rain, still good to go. Moving a little lower, I did have problems with my bottom bracket. Just like the headset, the bottom bracket seemed to wear out a little too fast. Got it replaced at the shop. Now it's running smooth, it isn't creaky, and I think it's gonna last a little longer this time, I hope. The race face turbine cranks. Again, cranks, you don't really need to be picky about. Do they look good? Are they light enough? Did they last? If yes, then they're good to go. The turbine cranks have lasted, and I think they look pretty good. So they get a stamp of approval from me 1 year in and going strong. Moving over here though, these one-up components pedals, this is actually my second set. And I like the way they feel, I like the way they look, but they haven't been lasting too long. I'd say about 2 to 4 months in, they need to be serviced. But in their defense, I do ruin a lot of pedals, and it's probably not them, it's probably me. That's why even though I said they need to be serviced a bit more often than you'd expect, this is my second pair, and I'm probably gonna buy them for my next bike too. And on the other side of the bike here, we have the race face chainring. Again, you don't need to get picky here. Does the chainring do its job? Does it look good? And does it last? Is it light? I can pretty much say yes to all those things, and so it gets the stamp of approval. I do wish this E13 chain guide little dealie was a bit more durable though, because it kind of flops all over the place now. So after a year, I think I need to replace it. Finally, at the back of the bike, we have the E13 cassette, which again, I see a lot of people maybe complain about, but after a year, I think it's done a pretty decent job, especially because it's priced pretty darn competitively. You can see I do have some shark toothing here on my ring, my big ring, which I do use a little too often, but it's still got a lot of life left in it. I had the same thing go on with my Shimano cassette after a year, so I think that's just normal wear and tear. Right when I got the bike, I ended up breaking off my derailleur, so I have a Shimano SLX now, and I really like it. I actually don't notice a difference between the XT and the SLX. They both shift the same, and if I'm not looking, well, I couldn't probably tell you which derailleur it was. So, in my opinion, save your money, get a GX, get an SLX. The fancy derailleurs aren't really worth it. I think the last thing I can talk about here is the Cush core, which I've been riding for a whole year. So I think we can start with the downsides, because there are really only two downsides to Cush core that I can think of. First, it's kind of expensive, and second, makes your bike a little heavier. But that's it. I find my bike's actually quite a bit smoother. I can run lower air pressure. I don't have to worry as much about dinging my rims. And I definitely noticed that the tire doesn't fold nearly as much when I'm cornering pretty fast. So now that I've talked about each of the components, sort of how they've lasted over the year, which is for the most part, they've all lasted just fine, except for the headset and the bottom bracket. Pretty much the rest is just normal wear and tear, which you'd expect, especially riding in the rain. Actually, maybe less wear than you'd expect from riding in the rain. But now I just want to talk about sort of the bike in general and YT. So the first big thing is, since you didn't buy it from a bike shop, you don't really have anyone to deal with. And that means when there's a warranty issue, like I cracked my 2017 YT2S. I had to email them, sort of do everything myself, and try to get my new frame. I had to send in the photos and all that, and build up the bike, and take apart the bike. And that's kind of tedious. The biggest thing is, I think from the time that they confirmed that it was a warranty issue to the time that I actually got my frame, it must have been at least 7 or 8 weeks, which is a really long time to not have a bike. And I think this is pretty common with YT and direct-to-consumer brands, at least in North America. I've heard in Germany and places where there's a bigger YT headquarters, warranty times are actually pretty fast. But when you have to ship a bike all the way to North America, especially just a front triangle, you might end up waiting, like I did. And that's the price you pay for not paying. So you paid less up front, and then you paid with time if you break your frame. That's a risk you gotta take with direct-to-consumer. In their defense, I did have the same thing happen to me with a regular bike brand, which I did buy from a shop. I cracked my frame, and I had to wait for them to make a new part. It's not like if you buy from Santa Cruz, or you buy from Norco, or you buy from Rocky Mountain, none of these problems will ever happen. If you crack your frame and they don't have the part and they have to get it manufactured, you're gonna have to wait. The two other complaints I have are, no water bottle holder bothers me more than I thought. I also don't like that they cut the steer tube. I like to have my stem up a little bit higher than it is now, but they kind of make that choice for you to slam your stem down. It looks good, but it's not what I like. So would I buy a YT again? Yeah, probably. The prices are just so good, and the bikes are really good. So that's it. After a year of owning my Capra and a 2S, well, two 2S's, that's all I have to say about YT. So let me know in the comments. I'm actually really curious. If you own a YT, do you have any stories? Has anything gone wrong with your bike? Do you have any big complaints? Is there anything that I didn't mention? Let me know, and we'll talk about it. And with that, I'll see you guys in next week's video.